Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. It is Tuesday, January 9th, 2018. This is your Cup of Jones. I'm at the desk. Things look a little weird today. I'm at the desk. We got a black desk. I'm wearing a black shirt. I'm in the negative space here today on Cup of Jones. So yeah, we got a big day. Get the mic over here, so I got to make sure to not lean forward too much. We have a big day of shooting. So we have gotten, we've got a frame trap done. We got an episode of the podcast done. Of course, we've been hanging out, doing Cup of Jones. And of course, we've been streaming a little bit. We have yet to get into the full production schedule for the rest of 2018. So today is a big shoot day. We're doing friend code. We're doing a little fun special shoot that you'll find out about in a little bit. And some other fun stuff. Obviously we've got a big stream night tonight. I'm going to be doing some watercolor this evening. So that's actually all I'm going to tell you. I actually have not done the final research on what we're streaming tonight. Apologies. I was kind of running around getting stuff set up this morning. But I can promise you that tonight I will be painting a watercolor painting because I lost the bets to Mr. Ian Hink for my opportunity to face off against Ultima Brad for E3 2018. Game of the Year deliberations coming up next Tuesday. Next Tuesday night, we'll be sitting down for an extended Tuesday night group stream, and we will be deliberating all of our categories. We're going to finalize what categories we're going to do tonight. We've been giving everybody just the most time they've ever had in the history of us deliberating games together, be it for reviews or countdowns or GOTY or whatever. So it should be a pretty heated discussion. We again, aren't going to do it a lot like we did it back at Game Trailers by having platform awards and genre awards. We definitely want to make it fun. We now that we're at Easy Allies, we can really do it however we want. And so hopefully this will be a nice blend of us bringing some fun ideas to the table and taking some really good recommendations from our audience. So looking kind of yellow. Yeah, well, again, I'm like farther away from the... Oh, wait, this light isn't even on. Ladies and gentlemen. Boom. How about that? Grab your thumbnail now. But I am still kind of yellow. The bad news is I'm kind of yellow by nature. Like my skin tone is kind of dull and boring. I notice a lot. You know, I get like the tan arms, and then like the peak whiteness comes in right up there, just peeking out. The the heavy Caucasianness coming at you in HD. But yeah, I'm not. Well, we also don't have the crazy lights on, and I don't want to mess around too much with the camera because the camera then goes back there and then is set up to be back there and to have all the lights in the background. So 10 times better now, says Baptiste. Thank you. That's so funny that I totally forgot that one massive light. I actually had a power outage, and that light just turned on last night. That was a little creepy. I was in here working on stuff, and all of a sudden I was in complete darkness. We have a ton of feedback, so I want to get it through. Just want to... I want to address one thing that I thought was funny that a lot of people ask at the beginning of questions, and that's, hey, I'm sorry if this has been asked already, but you don't have to apologize. Ask away. I love responding to questions, especially if they're Batman or Disneyland related, on multiple occasions. And I have no problem reading stuff a couple times just in case people missed it the first time. So maybe we should start the whole darn thing over now that I look appropriate. Just a behind the scenes production. You can see what a difference one of our giant light makes. We have two lights on the side that are just kind of filled. They don't do a whole heck of a lot, but then we got our two big guns right in the middle there, and that was one of the big guns that was not on. But still yellow, brighter, but yellow. Professor Metal Gear, what are your fitness goals for 2018? I don't have a ton. I wouldn't say I'm going to change up my fitness too much from what I did in 2017, except for the fact that I plan to eat a lot more. I had a really great session right after, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving. I think I had, when the in-laws were in town, I had just this bountiful breakfast one morning. I had like eggs and bacon and waffles and fruit and just like all sorts of crazy stuff, and then went to go work out and had a really, really great session because I was just like full of protein and full of carbs and just I had a lot of energy, and I was like, yeah, I should probably do that. Like I just kind of pound a smoothie and then go, but I want to try to fill out my diet a little bit more because even though I've been building on more muscle, I'm not gaining a lot of weight, and I'm not. I've always been a little skinny boy, so do it. Yeah, so the diet, which will affect the fitness, but not so much the fitness. Kashan's been doing a great job. No need to divert. Sean, my trainer. Diamond Crusader, what's the color of the underwear you're wearing right now? Black. VG Junkie, I beat Neo at launch and then took a break, and after jumping into the complete edition on PC, I'm incredibly satisfied with the new weapons and the amount of additional DLC patch content and endgame loot progression that they have been constantly rolling out since release. I'd say that one of my bigger disappointments for last year was seeing you and Huber miss out on all the fun for the reasons that you both gave. I could pretty much promise you that I could explain the blacksmith to you in a way that you could easily understand, and for Huber, I felt like him being burned out on Souls is selling Neo short because of how much cool and original stuff it has. It's better than every Dark Souls, in my opinion. Even then, I promise to you that you do not have to worry about the blacksmith stuff for your first playthrough of the game. Whew! It does not really have to come into play until New Game Plus or late DLC, if you don't want it to, because you'll be getting better and better loot drops as you go from mission to mission. That's what it felt like. It felt like something that I would do this if I was dissatisfied with the weapon I had, but I kept getting new gear. Do you think you guys might ever get around to playing it? It's such a satisfying game to play. Just let me know if you ever feel like you need a crash course on some of the mechanics. Thank you, VJ Junkie. Yeah, this is the time. And that's basically what I anticipate our Game of the Year deliberation is going to be like. It's like, oh, you remember Gravity Rush 2? Yeah, you know, just looking back on this. Remember, you know, SteamWorld Dig 2? Like, yeah. Wolfenstein, like all these games that might not come into the conversation when we're talking about the absolute best games of the year, because if you are picking your 20 best, just some sad things have to get pushed into the teens, and it seems like something that there's always one pick that you have that you'll be really frustrated about. Like even Animal Crossing on mobile gave me a lot of happiness this year, so there's a lot to talk about. I think I might get back to Neo. I mean, I downloaded it. I don't have to like search for the disc. It's just sitting on my hard drive on my PS4. And so, yeah, there's maybe after GOTYs, maybe after I'm playing games less out of obligation and more out of stuff that I actually want to finish. I will go back. Maybe when like Telltale Batman's done or something, I can like, you know, do another Neo sesh for a Thursday night group stream. For a Thursday night solo stream, the opposite of a group stream, the solo branded stream. But yeah, I'll tell you this, VJ Junkie, like, I know it's sad that I'm not playing Neo, but Neo's not... I haven't given up on Neo. There's not, you know, Neo doesn't sit in a place where I'm just like, yeah, those are the games I'm not going to play anymore. I just brought up Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein's a great example. With Neo being so difficult, it's tough when I get a little bit of spare time to play a game to immediately jump into something that's difficult and jump into something that I know is going to be confusing. It's why Blood and Wine from Witcher 3 has always kind of just been just out of reach, because I never actually played the second DLC, and I'm just afraid that getting in there I'm going to spend a half an hour just kind of like reacquainting myself with everything. And so it's tough. There is that barrier, that wall to jump past when you first get in, just of comprehension and thinking, am I going to spend a little bit of time understanding this game to just play it again for half an hour or an hour or two, or is this going to be my new game that I jump back to whenever I play games? I don't know. I could definitely see it happening because I liked Neo a lot, and maybe what I need to do is put some time between me and Neo before I play it again, so I can appreciate it. And I certainly don't want to play something out of obligation, but thank you for your passion. I accept all passionate pleas for me to play games. James Vest, for you, what is the most fun bad game you have ever played? Fun bad game. I have two examples for you. I think I mentioned them both on stuff that we've done here at Easy Allies. I didn't know the original Pac-Man for Atari was bad. Pac-Man came to Atari. I was just so stoked from owning an Atari. And I think my mom was like, oh yeah, Pac-Man. I've played Pac-Man before. I think they had a Pac-Man at the local Mexican restaurant, and so we played like Mrs. Pac-Man a lot. And so I was familiar with Pac-Man, and my mom got me Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. And I thought it was fantastic. I had a lot of fun playing that game. And it was only until Game Trailers that I learned that that was bad, that was like one of the worst games on the Atari. As far as ports go, it was one of the first times we were really disappointed by seeing a game we were familiar with on one system being ported to a home system, and it didn't quite work out. But I had fun, and Minority Report for the Xbox is a game that I enjoyed, that I got as a gift, a work present one time, and learned to love. But it's a pretty cheesy licensed game. I don't know, it might hold up. I don't know, I'll stream that game one day. Alan Canlick, does the prospect of a PS5 or an Xbox One X XXX by 2019 make you nervous, or is that just me? I feel like I was able to get a good lifespan out of my PS3 and PS2, with some stellar content tending to come out at the end of generation's life cycle. I think there's enough room to grow with the current generation, and the prospect of having to spend $500 plus on a new console bumps me out because I don't really have the money for it. I hear you, Alan, and that is definitely something I would have to save up for too. I didn't get an Xbox One X. I got a PlayStation Plus purely for work. You know, that was definitely like a work expense, because that was not something. If I had my income now and didn't have the job that I probably would not upgrade. I'd probably just play stuff on the OG consoles. I wonder if I would ever buckle up and buy a PC if I hadn't had one like gifted to me, basically, by being here for the work that we do here at Easy Allies. But I think as we get closer to 2020, I think that's like the dynamite time. I think you tease, because I remember seeing Watch Dogs, the first Watch Dogs, for the first time and being like, wait a minute, this is clearly not running on a PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. Look at this. And I don't think this is just like a really good looking PC game. I think this is next gen. And so I think we're going to start seeing that at E3 this year. We'll see a couple games announced, maybe some gameplay teases here and there. We're definitely going to see some logo stuff at E3 that we see no gameplay for anything. That basically just means maybe just at least Sony. Let's just say Sony does this, where they're like, yeah, we're definitely, because Xbox just released, their updated new console. So Sony's like, yeah, we're starting to plan for the next gen, and we're starting to book these, your Naughty Dog, a couple companies, actually probably not Naughty Dog because they're working on Last of Us, but companies that are going to start prepping and start making some cool stuff like Ubisoft for next gen. And here's a little tease, here's a look at it. And then we'll actually see and get to play a lot of that stuff in 2019. And then the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we get a new console, I think. And Nintendo's doing great. Nintendo can just sit on Switch sales for a while, I think. Just get some, get Animal Crossing out, get Metroid out, get a new Smash Brothers on there. Because that's technically next gen. The gen you're talking about is the Switch, technically. They kicked that off. But yeah, I'm not ready. I'm good. I think we need to get another wave. Again, Last of Us Part 2, Dreams, Spider-Man. There's just a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, there's just a lot of those really big AAA games that I think the crest of the wave of this gen. I think we're still surfing it. Brandon K. Gann, has there been an idea kicked around where Easy Allies has an ever-growing Q&A database located on the website? I actually didn't spend a lot of time beforehand writing down my takeaways, so let me separate that. One of the fun things of doing Cup of Jones here on the desk is it is more like a board meeting. It's just like, oh, hi, welcome to the board meeting. That is Cup of Jones. So I'll move that to the side and put that on there. Q&A. But yeah, this is, get your website suggestions in now, because we're looking to spend some money on adding some pages to the website, adding some functionality. And this is definitely something we've thought about. A Q&A could be accumulative from questions across all shows, or there could be a show-specific section like questions answered at Cup of Jones, monthly Q&A, etc. I feel like this could help in preventing duplicate questions being asked, provide for curious fans, patrons if they're looking for a specific answer, and be an archive for all kinds of information. Granted, if this were possible, everyone would probably have to answer some questions one more time, but having a one-stop location for queries regarding policies, official positions, etc. would prove to be quite valuable. Yeah, there's all sorts of fun ways we can organize that. But thank you for the suggestion. I know we've talked about that. I don't know if that's been based on Cup of Jones or other place suggestions, but yeah. And now I wrote it into feedback, or takeaway, so there you go. Cornfan, 2007. My biggest issue with Easy Livin' was the Mario full playthrough. Aww. It took up most of the day. In the EU. I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't watch a lot of it until it got more varied. So hearing you say less games is a big disappointment. I was hoping next time there would be more variety rather than huge full playthroughs. I think the thing about less games isn't like half of the games. It's just that anytime we were going to do an hour, we'd probably do 2. I do like the idea of doing a full playthrough, at least playing one game for an extended period of time. I don't know if it's the best to kick it off. We thought Easy Livin', Mario Sunshine, there was a nice, and of course Giant Bomb, full playthrough at pretty much at the same time. But yeah, I don't think it would be good for us to do Easy Living the same way we did it before. We need to learn from that kind of stuff, and so we'll definitely change up the format, and we'll take your considerations, or rather your concerns. And, you know, keep in mind, if you were a huge fan of Mario Sunshine and you really dug that, that might have been one of your favorite things. So it might not be that the full playthrough is a bad idea. It might just be that you weren't necessarily into Sunshine. I'm not necessarily into Sunshine, so I really appreciated spending more time with that game and actually seeing how it all wrapped up. Andrew left. What is one of your favorite pieces of entertainment that you loved so much that you felt the need to share it with a close friend and they just straight up didn't like it? How did you handle the situation? Did you repeatedly or still repeatedly try and get them to get into that piece of entertainment, or did you give up right away? Andrew, you are describing one of the most important moments of my life. I'm not even kidding. Like, I mean, it might sound like, I mean, I can say this with a smile on my face because it is kind of silly, but at the same time, it was very important. It really changed my outlook on how serious I take stuff sometimes. When I was playing Batman games for the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, and other systems, I remember thinking to myself, like, it's too bad that it's always one villain. It's always just like, mostly Joker, you know, like that most of the people that I'm fighting in any Batman game, even when it was based on the Batman movie in 1989, when that came to the NES, looking back now, that was a really good game because it had some really cool wall crawling mechanics, and Batman was really small, so there was lots of really challenging platforming, and the weapons that he used were really cool. But there's only like a handful of moments that are actually anything like the movie. I mean, you're just fighting like a bunch of weird people. And so I kept thinking, especially when I got into Batman the Animated Series, I was like, it'd be great if there was a video game that every level was a different villain, and you were going through as Batman, and you were constantly putting these people away. And then came The Adventures of Batman and Robin for the Super Nintendo. And if you're a Batman fan, I think you probably like this game if you have played it since it came out, or if you played it when it came out. But the big thing that was great is it modeled itself. I remember them saying at the time, like, it's like the animated series come to life, and that's not true. It looked like Super Nintendo graphics, but the levels would have their own art, and they would have a little. At the beginning, of course, levels have art, but at the beginning they would have a piece of art similar to the silhouetted noir-style opening title art pieces that the animated series would get. They would draw a fun little thing, so if it was like about the ventriloquist, you would see Scarface sitting there, and then it would have the title in the opening credits. And so they would have that, and then every level would be that villain, so just Poison Ivy or just Mr. Freeze. I don't think Mr. Freeze in it was that. I don't think Mr. Freeze was in it actually, but this game blew my mind. It was like the Batman game I'd been waiting for a long time. It was one of those games where you say you want a game, you're like, you know, it'd be really neat if they made a game like this, and then they make it very close to your original specs, very close to what you originally wanted. And so that blew my mind. I was so excited, and I brought it to my friend Jeff Groats, who I co-founded Game Trailers with, and I think I actually remember explaining it to him because we used to play racquetball in gym class in high school. And I remember coming to him and being like, Jeff, this is it. I found the greatest Batman game ever. And he was like, wow, that sounds really cool. And he didn't have it. And this was before really, internet video, so it wasn't like I could show him a video on my smartphone or even go over to his house and boot up his computer and show him stuff. I'm like, I got to show you this game. So I talked this game up for a couple days before he finally got to see it. And then he played it, and yeah, he was not a fan. He was like, I think the problem with this game, Jones, is that if this wasn't Batman, you wouldn't care about this. He's like, the platforming is not that great. I really liked the music because they brought a lot of Danny Elfman and Shirley Walker's work to life of the stuff they did in the animated series. And I couldn't take it. Like, he had to like this game. It was so important to me. And with my relationship with Jeff, a lot of the great lessons that Jeff taught me over the years, Jeff loved when people got angry at him. He loved being able to light someone on fire and really set somebody off. And so he got a huge kick out of how emotional I was about this. So the angrier I got, the more he laughed, the more he mocked me. And I lost it. Like, I got livid, like I was spitting, like my face was red. And then I did a full reversal and kind of came back, like went back from the Incredible Hulk to Bruce Banner and was like, wow, you really got me angry there. You know, I mean, like, I know that Candy Coated Thorn says, haha, what a friend. But at the same time, like, this is guys growing up. Like, guys just give each other a hard time, or at least the friends I did. And again, this is not like a 2-hour, you know, instance. It's just like a 5-minute argument. But I was amazed how angry I got, and how into that I was, and how much I required his need to enjoy this thing and to corroborate everything that I was saying, that it would affect my emotions, that I would get upset, that I couldn't just hand it to him. And then, like you said, here we go. What is it? Or did you just give up right away? Ever since then, I've pretty much given up right away. If I'm like, hey, you should try this, and somebody's like, nah, I don't like that director or writer, or I don't play video games, or I don't read comic books, or I don't feel like it, and be like, okay, like it's not worth it for me to get invested emotionally and then get burnt out, because I have no idea what somebody else is going to think of something. And so it's been really interesting with my mother and father-in-law. They were just in town, and they really liked Book of Mormon. And I was like, oh, because I'm always looking for something that they'll like, that I liked. Because a lot of times I enjoy something, like my mother-in-law, if something has action in it, she's just tuned out. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know, maybe she'd like something like Blade Runner, or maybe, I remember I showed her Predator back in the day, and I was trying to explain the qualities of Predator and what I think are like some of the good moments of Predator, and she was just like, her eyes were glassing over, just like, all right. So, yeah, you always got to take that with a grain of salt, what you can expect people to like, and if you like something and it brings you happiness, it's good enough. You don't necessarily need other people to do that too. Tune for Tune. What game besides Red Dead Redemption 2 will you this year likely spend the most time playing? Probably Dreams for PS4 if it comes out. Yeah, I'm gonna be playing lots of Dreams. And Spider-Man. That's another one of my. And Animal Crossing if we get Animal Crossing. Mikkelbach Sorensen, I already asked once, and it's such a dumb little thing, but what happened to that little pink light in the garage? We don't. I mean, this is like the Cup of Jones where we're turning lights on. I mean, it's right there. Like there's a red light right here. I don't know if you can see. I guess you can't see from down there because the camera's not back. But there's a red light here. So there's 3 white ones, and then a blue one that points to there, and then 2 red ones, one that hits here and one that hits there. So it's just a color balance issue. It's just white balance. Keep it on. Yeah, the reason I don't like to keep it on, and maybe I'll change that in the future. Maybe like my lighting considerations for Cup of Jones are not the greatest thing ever. But I like what light level are they at the? I don't have my reader out. I don't know. Because this is just a board meeting. It's kind of like I'm just putting the maintenance lights on and we're just sitting and chatting. When you put the back lights on, that to me that feels like 55. Oh, those lights. Sorry, no, they're at 100, baby, 100%. It's like when you put the backlights on, that's when it's friend code time. That's when it's podcast time. That's when it's group stream time. You know, it's like this is just us hanging out. You know, so I do the same actually when I play Batman and stuff like that alone here. I don't put the stuff on in the background because there's nobody back there. There's nothing to see back there. That's just, you know, like the dark, shady background. This is just us. You know, it's like you've been in boardrooms. How many boardrooms have fancy pink lights? Not many. We're in a boardroom. We're in a business meeting right now. It's no, we're, you know, drinking breakfast, you know. But I love the way this is worded. I remember how everybody was really impressed after you and Ian put up the new lights, and I guess they're still being used, but there was a red or pink filter that made y'all look a little better. Please bring it back. You want to look good, don't you? It's there. It didn't go anywhere. It's just the settings within the camera. So, and if there's like a pink brigade in Easy Allies, if there's like hashtag bring back the pink light, you know, hit Ian up, because I brought this up with Ian. I'm not like pointing the finger at Ian because I think our stuff looks fine, but I think it's such a huge leap from us putting the camera there and pointing it this way to putting the camera there and pointing it into the corner and having the backlights. That stuff looking a little bit more pink is not my concern right now. You know, I'm just focused on the studio, and then when we get in the studio, then we can balance the hell out of everything. But all of the lights that you're talking about are like duct taped and jerry rigged to a garage that was built in like the 40s. So I don't beat myself too up, but I do want to look good always. That's why I shaved today. Robert, have you considered putting an FAQ page together for patrons? Q&A? FAQ is probably the term I think that we're looking for. I know a number of questions have been asked multiple times, and I've done it myself. For example, how many of the allies work full-time? And those kinds of questions might be best written down somewhere as an easy way, capital E, easy way, for allies to reference and not have to ask again. Even though if we do that, and I advertise it every day, if I have a lower third right here that says, go check easyallies.com/FAQ for, you know, the most important questions and answers, I'd still get repeats all the time. But then again, I guess I could reply, oh, you know what I didn't do today? What's up, Rick Hogue? What I didn't do today was I didn't favorite everybody's comments that I didn't use in the show, so apologies for doing that. Somebody suggested that last week, and all it took was 1 week, and I'm already not doing it anymore. But yeah, we talked about that, but just another suggestion for that from Robert. Parasite Paladin, any progress or more ideas about the Amazon affiliate link for EZA? Video games, of course, a no-go, but you did say you would do something like Gundam kits. I was thinking about it, and I'm asking this because I had the idea that you could fill your Amazon storefront with all the candy and treats you were gifted. I feel that would be wonderful, since looking for a lot of the stuff seems like it would be hard, and if we didn't have the package in front of us. Just something to consider. Okay, write that one down. Amazon Gundam candy. This is an official investors meeting for a company that we all run together, and I just wrote down Amazon Gundam candy as a note for our business meeting that we're having right now. Stephen Vella, I was suggesting using the official EZA YouTube channel to comment on others' channel. Oh, I was suggesting using the official EZA YouTube channel to comment on other channels' videos, just like commenting on a NoClip video. This can also be done on Twitter, obviously. No need to specifically promote, but simply comment on something cool. Yeah, we could definitely do that. I think if we were to shift some responsibilities over and put somebody more directly in charge of social media management, then that's something that we could do. We could have that person, you know, be more engaging on YouTube, specifically recommending stuff, retweeting stuff. Ulf himself, the Sea of Thieves discussion on the podcast spurred this question for me. Jones, did you ever watch a cartoon called Pirates of Dark Water? I'm very familiar with Pirates of Dark Water. I think I've seen the intro a couple times, and I believe they made a video game of that show, but never got into that show. I will maybe do that. I don't know. Is that on, like, Hulu or something? James McCoy, have you ever approached any of the amazing fans that make best of videos to upload them for the official EZA channel? Some fans, most notable Some Game News, have shown some serious chops in putting together compilations and best of videos with professional level editing. I can't help but feel that making a deal with these fans to upload their videos to the EZA channel would be a win-win. EZA gets great videos that are the perfect way to ensnare new fans or just entice existing fans to check out content like live streams they otherwise wouldn't. And the editor might get to collect ad revenue on their compilation videos from the more than 130 EZA YouTube subscribers. It's something that I think many members of the community would seriously support, as EZA makes plans to extend its reach in 2018. As EZA makes plans to extend its reach in 2018, what you just described is one of the big things I'm going to be bringing to the meeting. And I will leave it at that. Like, yeah, a big thumbs up to what you just said, James McAvoy. Or James McCoy. Or James McAvoy. Minimic, I have a suggestion relating to the group stream selection committee. The way it works now seems a bit less than optimal. Doing it through Patreon means you have to scroll through hundreds of posts, click likes, and then through some Patreon site shenanigans, have those likes either randomly removed or assigned to things you never clicked a like on to begin with. I feel like the optimal solution would be setting up some kind of polling site where everyone in the tier could input a nomination, and when it came time to voting, a nice clean list could be presented to vote on. And Turbo Chicken Man weighed in on this. Is it raining? It's weird, I can hear rain on the roof, but I don't see rain out of the window. But yeah, it sounds like it's raining. How bizarre. It's raining in just one very specific spot. Turbo Chicken Man weighs in as well. Something has got to change with the GSC, because unless you reply within 2 hours of it going up each week, your pick is firmly out of the running. I will write those down. Yeah, there's it's not perfect, and it's frustrating that a lot of the issues that we have with because we want to do so much stuff not only with our community but specifically with our patrons. We want to provide a value and a back and forth. You know, we create something for you. You give us advice or notes, or you supply good questions or conversation starters, and we want that to work, and but we don't work for Patreon.com. We work at Patreon, and so we work at Easy Allies, which is run through Patreon. So we can't make updates to the website. We can address technical concerns with their department. And so moving away from Patreon sucks. It's not, I don't want to redirect as much as we can. I definitely want to do stuff through the systems that they have, but if it's pissing people off, then it's not something that we want to do. I know that Kyle is never 100% satisfied with with the way that the group stream selection committee is set up. So that is definitely something that we will address moving forward. Logan Taz, you mentioned a few Cup of Joneses ago that you once binged all the James Bond movies, so I gotta ask, which is your favorite movie and actor of the bunch? Conversely, your least favorite of each. And if you'd like any standout moments, villains, Bond girls, etc. Personally, my favorite is Casino Royale, and although I only like 2 out of 4 of his movies, Brosnan is my favorite Bond. 2 out of 4? I'm curious what the other, one's probably GoldenEye, but I'm curious what the other one was, because Tomorrow Never Dies, World Is Not Enough, and the other one, Die Another Day. Die Another Day is probably... I enjoy Die Another Day, but it's cheesy. Brosnan is my favorite Bond, and he was the most enjoyable actor, even if the material he had to work with isn't the greatest. Moonraker and Roger Moore would be my least favorites. Moonraker was definitely my favorite Bond growing up. It's campy. I love the scene in Moonraker where he goes out hunting with Drax, who's the bad guy, and Drax gives him a shotgun, and he's supposed to shoot ducks, I think, and so the ducks go flying up in the air, and Roger Moore shoots, and then Drax is like, haha, you missed, and he says, did I? And then a sniper that was going to take Roger Moore out falls out of a tree, and it's like, oh, he got him. And so but it's weird, it's like one of those moments where like the villain knows it's Bond, and Bond knows the villain knows that he's Bond, but like they're still just kind of hanging out, shooting. I didn't like his interpretation of Bond, and his movies were the most forgettable to me. I gotta say, I like Roger Moore. I think Roger Moore might be my favorite. I feel the closest kinship to Brosnan, which is why GoldenEye is probably my favorite Bond. But one thing that definitely stood out from watching them all, some of these, boy, do not hold up. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is really great. It had been a really long time since I've seen that, and I think that's an entertaining movie. Telly Savalas, yeah, is pretty great in that, and Lazenby does a really good job. It's a very interesting Bond. I think Roger Moore is just so damn charming. Like, and rest in peace, Roger Moore passed. We lost him in 2017. He's just so effortless as Bond. He just makes it really, I don't know if nobody does it better if they sang that for Roger Moore. But one movie that really stood out that I don't think I'd seen in a really long time was From Russia with Love. And I think there's some great sparring between romantic leads in an action film. I think it is actually, I wouldn't dare call any Bond film progressive, but there's some ways that the Russian spy asserts herself, and some things that the way that they treat her other male characters, the way they treat her in that film. I remember bringing up to Amanda and being like, I was actually okay with this scene. What do you think? She's like, yeah, I think that's funny. I think even that kind of humor still holds up today, because a lot of the Connery stuff, he's just like smacking women around, and like there's one scene in Goldfinger that's like, I really forgot the logistics of this scene, where he like breaks into an apartment and there's a woman on a deck in a bikini just watching Goldfinger and helping him cheat at cards, and Sean Connery just like walks onto the balcony and just lies on top of her, and you're just like, wow, those are the days, I guess. But yeah, I really enjoyed From Russia with Love. I like when she hits a button on the submarine car and takes out a couple people, and Roger Moore's like, how did you know to do that? And she's like, honey, I got the blueprints for this submarine car like 10 years ago. I'm a Russian spy. Like, I know everything you're doing before you do it. Yeah, but GoldenEye's pretty sweet. I didn't not like Timothy Dalton. What is it from, is it View to a Kill or Living Daylights that Benicio del Toro's in, where like people get like chopped in half and stuff. It's crazy. Ryan Benici, I could talk about Bond a lot, but I won't. Ryan Benici, do the Allies have the capability to do race or duel streams? The intramural tournaments are great fun, watching multiplayer games where Allies go head-to-head, but it's a whole different vibe seeing players race through the same game simultaneously. Some examples of this are race streams done during Games Done Quick, where 3 or 4 players try to get through Super Mario World, Super Metroid, or any game enough of the allies feel that are race-worthy. To keep as many allies in the loop as possible, it could even be team races, i.e. Super Mario 64. After every star's collected, tag out to another ally. Just an idea to spice up the tournament and give single-player games a chance to show a competitive side. I love it. Actually, that was the one takeaway that I did write down. Racer dual streams. I love that idea. I don't know about tournaments. Maybe we throw that out to our group stream selection committee. Flawed system as it is. And maybe we can get that going potentially for group stream in the future. But that's a great idea. Something that we could easily do. And maybe something that we might want to hold back and maybe do that as a show. And do that on an annual basis. Monthly or something when we get a studio, because that's one of the things that's kind of tricky is we have some really great ideas from people about new content that we can do. We are stretched thin, which is why we might have to sunset some stuff or put some stuff on the shelf to produce some different kinds of features in 2018. But a lot of these too would be really great to save for the studio, so that when we get a studio, it's not just like, hey, we just turn the lights on in that studio and keep producing the same stuff we did before. Beaten Down Brian, in terms of people, like a debate show or a game show, I think is a studio save. Beaten Down Brian, in terms of people not getting their questions answered on the podcasts and Q&A, I really don't think there's much you guys can do about that. I am kind of in that camp as well. If our questions don't make it, then we can simply retry again next week. It's just the problem is for some people that's very annoying and tiring. Not to sound rude, but if you repost a question a few times and it doesn't get on, then maybe it's time to try a different question. That's generally the way I look at it, and if my question didn't make it, then it wasn't good enough, so I try something else. That is I would say that isn't like the absolute correct statement. That would be the other end of that spectrum. So you definitely have some people in our community that are comfortable throwing questions at us and don't necessarily need those questions to get in. And then you have people that are possibly really frustrated because they've asked many questions, haven't gotten one in yet, and feel that although, he's like, maybe you try a different question. Your question is probably completely legitimate and is something that we would answer. It's just, you never know not only what is going to happen in terms of your question and the topics that we're discussing, but what happens in the span of time between them. Somebody might ask a question that might not seem very relevant when it is actually posted on Patreon, but then by the time we do the podcast, some other news thing might come up, or it's often nice to save time on the podcast by not addressing a news item just to talk about it like we would in the beginning of the podcast or right after podcast halftime before we get into to bets and all that stuff, or special games or anything, to be like, hey, this just happened, hey, Sony just announced they sold 6 million or whatever, 6 billion or whatever, however many PS4s they've sold, and someone will ask that in love and respect. And so it's like, oh, this is a great opportunity to talk about that like we should on the podcast, but frame the discussion in the way that this one user wanted us to. And so there's that. So yeah, there's possible tricks that you can do, and maybe either here on Cup of Jones or on the podcast, it might be nice to make like a short list of kind of what we look for generally in those questions. Maybe have that in our Q&A. Mike Spam, I know you wanted feedback about the forum, so I took the time to compile a visual guide of the problems I see as someone who has gone a couple times but isn't a user. I've read this, I appreciate it. I'm not going to go through all of the details because I want to save some time today, but if you want to check this out, patreon.com/easyallies, you can check out the latest post for Cup of Jones. That is the January 2nd episode, 1/2/18 of Cup of Jones. Mike Spam puts a nice fun visual guide. And if we make these adjustments, obviously in the future we will address that you sent that over, because I definitely appreciate that Mike Spam. That is above and beyond some nice work. Alexander Ziranov, there is a white door behind you. Where does it lead, and why does Lightning guard it? Lightning guards it because that was just a convenient place to put Lightning. We had to do a little surgery on Lightning because she had a stand in the back so she could stand straight up. She can't do that anymore. If she takes a good wind, it'll knock her over. But that's just storage. It's just a big pile of boxes. Dare I tease? Storage. See? Boxes of stuff. Stacks and stacks and stacks of boxes. When we first started Easy Allies and I was still doing Toy Box Tuesday, I would go in there regularly and pull out all of the Infinity figures. Matt Brookbank, one of the things I'd like to do if we do countdowns again is bylines. Quote, That was me. What? Haven't you always shot down EZA countdowns? Is this a change of heart? Or maybe I'm just thinking of a far-off studio future possibility. I would like to focus on one word. Okay? And terminology is very important for me. I pick my words carefully, and if I use incorrect words and are called out on it, I will retcon words that I said before. But I think I kicked up something in that closet. Excuse me. I don't know if I shoot down EZA countdowns. I don't know if not doing a thing is the equivalent of shooting it down. God, I wish I could mute that mic. Hold on a second. Excuse me. I don't have a change of heart. Terminology is very important, and I shoot it down. There are two words that I use very carefully. One is if. Whenever I say if, all bets are off. There's no guarantee whatsoever that you're getting that. So one of the you quoted me specifically. One of the things I'd like to do if we do countdowns again is bylines. So yeah, there we go. That's an if. So I do like to talk about things conceptually. We are here in investor meeting. It's fun to talk about the ifs, the stuff that we could possibly do. But if I use if, that means if. That means might not happen. Don't count on it. If I use the word promise, that's the gold brick. That's the gold star. If I promise something, if I say I promise we're going to do that, then you can definitely hold me accountable. But and there are allies that want to do countdowns. Like, that's not something where all 9 of us are like, boo, countdowns. I think you could probably guess which allies are the ones who really want to do countdowns. Lori Livo, what's your experience with Spreadshirt? If I were to buy an EZA t-shirt, I'd like to be sure of its quality and comfort. I've bought many band fan shirts over the years, and very often get disappointed by their quality and comfort. Never heard anything good about Spreadshirt, just seems to be the go-to brand usually with these. I would suggest you look into what's the best brand. We are. I've heard good things about Gildan, and have some myself. Gildan. Gildan, maybe. My initial Easy Ally shirt kind of fell apart. I don't know if that's because I took poor care of it, but I did like the fit of that shirt. I can be pretty particular about how t-shirts fit, and I enjoyed the way Spreadshirt feels, the way Spreadshirt fits, and I like the designs. I think it's just a question of durability and like long term. If that's like the only shirt you wear, I don't know if that holds up. But Corn Fan says I have 2 t-shirts and a hoodie. Both are going strong. Nice. Discard says the shirts fit good. Zephyr Moon, Spreadshirt hoodie is great. Adam Sharon Brock, love the hoodie. So the hoodie apparently is the way to go. Matt, what do you think about doing interview-style videos based on the time of year or various events? What I'm thinking of is a Talking Heads type video where each of the allies is presented with a question, and they just talk about it for 1 to 3 minutes or however much they have to say. It might slightly overlap with a few of the podcast topics, but it would hit every ally and be more accessible video length. It seems like something that could be easy to expand upon and would be on the easier side to produce. A few example topics to illustrate this idea would be January. What are you looking forward to in the gaming year? Not many releases. What's the top of your backlog? Before E3 or any event? What are you most excited for in E3? After E3? How did E3 surprise you? After holiday season? What was your go-to vacation game this year? We talked about that. We wanted to do it at the beginning of January and just didn't have the time. December, January, what were the most underrated games you played this last year? So yeah, that's an interesting suggestion. Again, it's the question of having everybody here. One thing that if we don't hit that studio goal that I've been thinking about in the future is possibly setting up some of the allies more to shoot stuff more at their own place. So that if they want to do a brief editorial or if they want to do a quick video, Damiani has a camera at his place and he can just record something or, you know, hand out some, you get a camera, you get a mixer, hand out some of that stuff maybe for some of the allies that are interested. But again, this is, if we see the allies just kind of hunkering down at 40K and it is immovable, then that is something, but I would prefer to do something like this in the studio. And I think, Matt, what you're, you know, the type of show that you're describing, I think, fits in really well with stuff you want to do for the studio, because it's taking advantage, like we are today, like we're just shooting stuff back to back to back today, because we know everyone can you know, is almost automatically going to, you know, plot out Tuesdays as Easy Allies days, and so it makes sense to fill that up. So even if we just had like a Monday or Tuesday and maybe a Wednesday be full-time Easy Allies days for all of the allies, then there's more opportunities to do stuff like this. Rinny, I'm sorry to add to the constant stream of merch requests, but if it isn't too much trouble, could we get some Easy A tanks? Something suitable for a tropical beach. It's vacay season, baby. Yeah, I don't think it's cold and rainy in Southern California, and it's usually summertime is usually tank time. But I guess the holidays people head out to Bora Bora or Hawaii. Tank tops. Tony Knox, I need to buy plane tickets to California and request off for work. Which weekend or week will the 2-year festivities be in March? Thanks in advance. So right now we are looking at again, this is an if. This is not a promise. But I know people would probably at least enjoy a ballpark. I think our 3 main options were to do an on our anniversary, which is Wednesday the 21st of March. That's right in the middle of the week. I think that's just really inconvenient for a lot of people. Tuesday nights are group stream, so that's inconvenient. And GDC is the weekend following the 21st. So it looks like the 18th, which is a Sunday, and possibly if we cannot get into bookings on Sunday because that's St. Patrick's Day weekend, if people are doing big crazy concerts or shows in LA. I've already reached out to a couple people that are great venues that would have worked out but are unfortunately busy on Sunday night. Then we might bump it to Monday, but the 18th or 19th will be the festivities in Los Angeles live for Easy Allies. So apologies to everybody. Again, it's on one thing, on one hand, hey, here's a promise. I promise we will get those times figured out come hell or high water. If that stuff doesn't work out in 2019, if we plan a date and the GDC's like, we're gonna be that weekend now, and it's like, thanks GDC. I will get that stuff figured out before the end of 2018. Before the end of 2018, I promise you will know when the 2019 anniversary festivities will be. But it's just tricky picking the right time. And not only picking the right time, but picking the right time that a venue is available. And then when you pick the venue that's available, making sure that's on a location where there's other fun stuff to do. And so kind of was fortuitous and worked out. All our ducks kind of lined up in a row last year. It was a venue I was familiar with that unfortunately just didn't work out like we liked. And so we would like to try someplace new this year. And it's taking time. Sorry. Barto Bud, I'd love to hear some of your Lego Dream Game I'd love to hear some of your Dream Lego Game crossovers. With Nintendo's unprecedented crossover of Mario plus Rabbids, how would you feel about a Lego Nintendo game? I'd be way down. Or maybe Lego Pokemon, Lego Souls. No. Personally, I'd love to see a Lego Easy A game. Maybe keep it in mind when you're thinking of new patron tiers. Keep it classy, love and respect, Barto Bud. What would be a good... I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the one that Greg Miller says a lot, and I think that's a great idea. So I'm gonna put on behalf of him, and he's got way more sway in the Lego world. So me saying that isn't gonna make it happen, unfortunately. Robble. I feel like the Also in the Works section on EasyAllies.com has been underutilized lately, and it seems quite random to me which projects are getting listed there. For example, Ben's Divinity Original Sin 2 review is currently not listed, whereas Bloodworth's previous review of Need for Speed was listed prior to its release. A suggestion I'd like to make for bigger projects that are time-consuming like Game Sleuth and retrospectives is to add the current pipeline stage of the project, scripting, doing the VO, being edited, etc., to Also in the Works, to give people an idea on the current situation. I know it's nothing important or game-changing, but it's something I would definitely appreciate. Something that I don't do enough on Cup of Jones because I like to wait until the last minute to get questions, because some people wait until I actually got a tweet from somebody who was like, yesterday, I just dropped my question in for Cup of Jones, and I'm like, well, you're right on time, because I was just about to grab the questions. So I don't get a lot of opportunity to send this to another ally and then come back with a response on Cup of Jones. A lot of times I kind of leave that up for those other allies to reach out to people, which is not convenient, I'll admit. And so, always watching, eagle-eyed Daniel Bloodworth jumped into the chat already and answered this. So here's the direct response from Mr. Daniel Bloodworth. I think I'll leave comments here when I spot something I can answer, just to make it easier for Brandon to spot and include. I try hard not to overpromise on things. And while some reviews are more certain than others, there are times when we want to do a review, and for various reasons, it simply doesn't work out. So for the purposes of the also in the works section on the schedule, I never include a review until I actually have a draft of the script in my hands. As for including a more detailed status on other projects, it's something to think about, but may be hard to communicate in such a short space. There you go, said it better than I ever could. Whoa, Bess, I have a thought on how to improve the individual streams, at least for my own enjoyment. I love the Kyle, Brandon, and group streams, but I keep passing on most of the other streams. I think it's mainly because of the tiny headshot. I feel like there is a disconnect when I have to squint to see emotions. Please consider making them bigger. Bigger stream headshots. You know who likes big headshots? Michael Huber. 2 more pages. We're making really good time on Cup of Jones today. Just want to make sure everything is all set up and good to go. So when the other allies come over. So, starting late, ending early. Tim Beshan asks the question I've been waiting to answer the entire time I've been doing Cup of Jones. What are your thoughts on Arnold Schwarzenegger? I grew up with his movies and I still really enjoy them. The good ones, and especially the silly and dull ones. Wait, excuse me? The good ones, and especially the silly and dull ones like Commando, Predator, and Kindergarten Cop. Everyone, what do you think of him as a politician, especially as a Californian resident? Recently, I read his biography and it was amazing. Have you checked it out yet? I have not checked out the official biography of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's okay as a politician. I think, you know, it was ever since Ronald Reagan, it's like actors, you know, actors and reality television show stars and wrestlers can be politicians now. Because I think one of the things about politicians is you got to be liked. You got to be, you have to be personable. You have to speak and have people like what you're saying and how you're saying it. And so, it's interesting that Schwarzenegger, got to become a politician. But, yeah, I think, didn't like in here we go, now it's really raining. Didn't Demolition Man, like, make a joke about that, where, like, Schwarzenegger's president in the, Demolition Man movie? Yeah, I love Schwarzenegger. I don't think Predator is silly at all. I think Predator is excellent. I think Predator has silly moments. It has, like, stick around, and, if it bleeds, we can kill it, and, oh, come on. I mean, just, and then, what is this Thai business in the beginning? Like, all of that lead-up stuff. I think it's interesting because it's John McTiernan, so it's the same guy who did Die Hard, and I look at Predator as kind of a commentary on aliens, on a lot of these let's go get 'em, you know, military movies where you have a bunch of people going in, and obviously, like, all of them are going to get taken out, and it's going to come down to this last person, like, to save himself before he gets out. I think the shot is extremely silly. I hate in the end when the smoke clears, he's, like, standing. He should have a cigar, too. He's just like, yeah, I'm Schwarzenegger. Like, I wish he was, like, you know, I wish they kind of, like, dug him out of the ground or something. It's, like, kind of silly that he's, like, back up on his feet at the end of Predator. But considering that, like, he's in the helicopter, like barely alive at the end. But the last, like, 20 minutes of Predator are really exceptional, are really great. When he finally realizes what he's going up against, when he finally realizes that the difference between people that are trying to attack the Predator and people that aren't, when he actually, you know, kind of like steps back from everything and kind of wipes it, you know, goes back to the drawing board and realizes, like, hold on, I think this is an alien. I think this is, like, not human. I think this, the tactics of this thing and kind of the goals of this enemy that I'm fighting are completely different from anything I've ever fought. And so I have to kind of, get into its head and think the way it thinks and not necessarily the way that I think. And I think that's a lot of heist movies, that's a lot of action films. When there's big groups of people, it's always just kind of like it's like, oh, you got the computer guy and the gun guy, and they all work together and they do it, and maybe you lose a couple people, but to have, like, his entire squad get wiped out, and then it's just down to Predator 2 is also very entertaining. It's just him screaming and the Predator hearing him, and, like, him hugging the tree upside down, and the Predator just goes down right next to him. Like, just a lot of really cool moments in that are not in Commando, that are not a Kindergarten Cop. That is definitely the silly, the twins era of Schwarzenegger. I've seen them all, man. I've seen Eraser. I've seen Collateral Damage. I've seen a lot of crazy I've seen Avengers, Batman and Robin, like, woo. There's, I've seen Schwarzenegger do a lot of crazy stuff. I love Schwarzenegger. I loved him in, I'm so excited, because as a kid growing up in the 80s, it was just like, can we please get a Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme. We get a movie where they're all in it, and then it was The Expendables. They finally did it. So even though those films are not great, I definitely appreciate that. So what are my thoughts on Arnold? I mean, there's my thoughts. Arnold's the man. And I've been quoted to say Terminator 2 does not hold up. I need to clarify that more. I think Terminator 2 is an excellent film. I think the Terminator concept, I'm a little tired of it. I think it's a little silly. Time travel is tough to do. That's why time travel comedies are always better than non-time travel stuff. Or when you make a time travel drama, have the rules be very rigid and strict and often brutal and make people sad. Morgan Mohala, here's some personal questions. Feel free to skip any that you don't care for. So yeah, Morgan's really careful. I believe Morgan asked, either direct messaged me or asked here on Cup of Jones, like, I don't even talk about personal questions on Cup of Jones. Is there anything that would be too personal? We'll see. Number one, what gives you the largest sense of accomplishment in life? Building something and seeing other people use it. It's why I really like setting up the stage. The guys come over sometimes and they're like, "Oh, you set up all the lights and everything. Thanks, Jones." But I really like setting Junior. Oh boy. But I really like setting up things. And then I think one of the happiest moments of my life was going to E3 and watching a crew build the first Game Trailers booth. It was like I think it was 2006 or 2007. It was the year that we got acquired by MTV Networks and Viacom, and they built a booth for us. And they built a booth the following year after that, but it was more like a little space we could do interviews in. But this was like a big booth, and it was where it was right next to where the coffee place is near South Hall. It was at the top of the escalators, and I just kind of kicked back and watched them build it, and so it was neat. Seeing something come to life. I'm a big fan of like Pinocchio and things where you have artists that create things and then they're given their a life of their own. So when that kind of stuff happens, writing a script and seeing people read it, or creating a character and seeing people become that character. 2, what is a decision that you wish you could go back and change? Not making myself as visible as I could have been at Game Trailers. Not being on the podcast more, not making the Game Trailers podcast, starting GT Time in like 2006, basically, way ahead of Invisible Walls, hosting that podcast, putting myself more out there. Number 3, what was the time you overreacted and later regretted it? We talked about it today. I overreacted to my friend's dismissal of The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Number 4, what are some likes and dislikes for the Easy Allies community? I like many things about the Easy Allies community. I don't like it when the Easy Allies community is mean to each other. There we go. I think those were... I cared for all of those personal questions, Morgan. Keep them coming. DRD 7 of 14. Have you ever thought about, unless you already have, doing VO for an audiobook? Yes, and I don't care to do it. I know it's a lot of work to record that. And props to all of the voice and speech experts who've been such a joy to listen to on Audible. Mark Thompson is a personal favorite of mine on all of Timothy Zahn's Star Wars books. There's Roy Dotrice, the late, great Roy... Here, pour one out for Roy Dotrice. Cheers, Roy. The amazing Roy Dotrice does the audiobooks for the first 5, and maybe the only 5 ever books in the Song of Ice and Fire series, later known as Game of Thrones. It does an incredible job if you ever want to pop those in. And you got time between book 6 and season 7. There's definitely one element missing to my Audible adventures, and that is the enriching voice of Brandon Jones, trademark. Would love to see if you've ever done this, be it your own shorter works or if other authors have ever reached out, and if you ever want to be interested. Yeah, it's just a ton of work. And it's character work, which I'm not a huge fan of. I definitely, although fun story, I'm not going to send this to you because this was a personal gift, but for Amanda's, her 40th birthday is coming up. Not for a couple years, but it is closer to her now than her 30th birthday was. And for Amanda's 30th birthday, because Amanda has a lot of very talented friends and a lot of very talented voice actor friends, I got a bunch of them together and we all recorded Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first book in the Harry Potter series. We did the full audiobook for the entire thing. And I narrated it, and I did the voice of Harry, I narrated it with a American accent and read Harry, you know, a little higher pitched with a British accent. And her closest friend was Hermione. Her husband was Ron, and got a bunch of really fun people. My friend that I talked about that's the Disneyland train. I don't know if I brought that up on Cup of Jones, but I know the voice of the train at Disneyland. I was very starstruck when I learned that. He's a very nice, jovial, big-voiced man named Bob Joles, and he was Hagrid, and was absolute dynamite Hagrid. I mean, like, I legitimately had a voiceover professional be Hagrid in that recording. And I had a voiceover professional be Snape. And a lot of them did multiple takes, and he was out of town, and so I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, can you do Snape? And I sent him the lines of dialogue, and he didn't even say yes and then do it. When he sent me the yes reply, he just sent me the takes. And it was one take of every line, and they were perfect. And I was like, done, you're Snape. Finished. So that was fun, but considering how much work that was, I mean, albeit I had to direct a lot of people doing a bunch of different characters, but that is, Amanda's done a couple of those. I can actually let you know what those are if you want to go buy them and listen to Amanda. But one thing that I do want to do is Siberian would help would need a British Jones sample. I've done British before, and I've been chastised for it. I do a bad British accent. Harry would probably be like this. Harry, he's very young. Harry. That's like Hermione. That's like Amanda's Hermione impression. Harry. What I do want to do, though, is I don't know if all of you subscribe to Waze, W-A-Z-E. It is a GPS software, is an app you can get for your smartphones. Waze. The way it works is people are constantly reporting, and it's kind of like a crowdsourced information GPS system. And apparently you can record your own GPS stuff. Obviously there won't be like street names, but it's like, coming up, take a left. And I've been putting it off, but apparently you can do that and upload it and then post that link. So I might just post that link on Patreon, and then you can go and download Waze, and then I can help you get around town. Robert 7 Lee, there seems to be a lot of apprehension among some of the allies when it comes to Divinity Original Sin 2. Maybe because the game seems too complex and there's a lot to learn. It's just a very super long game. I've been a console-only gamer until the last 3 years, so from someone who never grew up with these types of games, let me say that it's no way near as bad to get into as some have suggested. I don't think it's like, yeah, it's not a, at least for me, it is not a, it will be bad to get into type of thing. I've played a lot of those games. I think the game does a good job of easing the player into the mechanics, and on the normal difficulty, I never ran into a challenge I couldn't overcome. You gotta use those quick saves. The turn-based aspect is the most appealing to me, as you have the time to explore and plan your moves. Robert continues. Is very passionate about Divinity. For those who don't like keyboard and mouse, the game also includes native controller support. This includes a revamped UI with larger text. I think it's very user-friendly to newcomers. The biggest issue with this game, it's a huge time commitment. But I think it's worth it. I know I'm not telling you why I think it's good. I think the critical acclaim speaks for itself. Rather, I'm trying to ease any concerns that the game is too difficult to get into. It seems a lot of the allies have beaten both Mario and Zelda, and I understand playing the Switch on the go makes that easier. However, looking from the outside, it does seem like some of the allies would rather spend additional time on Zelda and Mario than try this game. I hope I'm wrong. If Divinity Original Sin 2 doesn't come up in your GOTY discussion, I hope it's because you didn't like it, rather than most of the allies hadn't tried it. Having said that, I can't wait for your GOTY deliberations, and I hope none of the allies are uncomfortable with it being broadcast live. We're all uncomfortable with it. That's why it's fun. That's why you're tuning in, because we're all terrified. No, I think Divinity is incredible. I played the first game. I've demoed Divinity on more than one occasion and was incredibly impressed, and it was very hard to stop demoing it. I wanted to keep going. So I don't think that's something you have to worry about. I'm sorry that if it's come across that way, and I know we will definitely have to be careful of our language with how we address Divinity Original Sin 2. I can't speak to what our nominees will be for Game of the Year. We have not made them yet. Robert, number 1. I still see a lot of love for the final Bossman, and I'm currently binge watching it right now. Is there officially zero hope that Kyle would ever want to do that kind of show again? I cannot speak on behalf of Kyle when it comes to that show. I feel like even with the podcast, we don't get enough Bossman commentary on the gaming industry, and he brought such a unique voice to the table that I'd love to hear more from him in a creative way. I know the answer is probably no, but curious about how much of this has been discussed behind the scenes. Note, this is also with the fact that I have no idea what Box Peak will be about, but I am very much looking forward to that show either way. I can tell you this: we give them a hard time about it a lot. Like whenever I'm certainly at the end of this month when we talk about all of our shows, I'm just going to look over and be like, so. Any this year? Is this the year? You know, and I know he'll probably be like, yeah, Jones. No. Number 2. Thinking about the final boss, man, I wonder if there's a chance any of the allies will do shorter form content like that. I don't mean exactly like that show, but shorter episodes of different kinds of shows as opposed to long form talking shows. This is kind of getting into me talking about providing other equipment for the allies, having them have stuff at their house so they don't have to drive. So people that live far away like Brad or Damiani or Ben don't have to drive all the way over here to shoot a thing. That, yeah, maybe Ben can do supplemental frame traps, or maybe Ben can do his own voiceover for don't skips that he wants to do. He doesn't have to wait for me, which shouldn't go away because I love those too. The long form talking shows. I know it really comes down to how much time everyone has, of course, but wanted to hear your thoughts. Well, I mean that's a way. Oh, there we go. Oh, we're done. Yeah. Oh no, we got one more page because this is the last page because I've been writing on takeaways. Sorry, I know you got all excited. We're like, oh, we're done. We're not done yet. It's only an hour and 15 in. I have a little bit more time. It's so funny how it's like sunny over there, and yet I'm hearing rain on this side. But yeah, time saving is something that is something that we can do. Again, when people talk about like the pink light, I would very much like to produce more content or do content smarter or do short form content before I stress out about why that light isn't showing up. A pack of puppies. The last Cup of Jones included a question asking about the food ordered during group streams. That got me totally curious about the behind-the-scenes food logistics of EZA group streams. I assume you order it. How do you decide what to order? Just whatever you're in the mood for? Has any ally ever called you beforehand and put in a specific dinner request? Can we have a Patreon tier to ensure that everyone gets a second slice of pizza? Everyone always gets a second slice of pizza. I if anything, like I talked about earlier, undereat because I'm just stressed about the group stream and I want everything to go well. And so I don't want to leave the group stream for too long in case something goes wrong. And so I'll just kind of go out and like throw a chicken wing or a piece of pizza into my face. We have... I am not super creative when it comes to food. I've said this before. I'm not a cook. I'm not a chef. I'm not a foodie. I have smoothies for breakfast. I eat just kind of out of necessity. And so when it came to providing food for the allies, I have not been very creative. It will either be pizza or barbecue, or because there's an amazing barbecue place nearby, or a couple times we've done Mexican food or Chinese food. Or possibly leftovers. I tried to do like a food service one time where they had meals that I prepared, but I had to like put them in the oven or microwave them all, and I just was like, wow, that took an hour of my time, and it'd be better if the food just kind of showed up and we ate it. But yeah, you don't have to worry about people not getting a second slice of pizza. We have had special requests. Brad has had some special requests. Ian has some dietary needs, and so some of the people... And I just, none of the allies all like the same type of pizza, and so I'm always aware of like, ooh, this is really tasty, or like, oh, Jones, I like this, we should do that later. Kyle was very particular about the type of rice we got from when we got Chinese food, so you never know. Robert is back, or possibly a different Robert. It's just Robert. What's on your wish list of new features for the next Animal Crossing? A camera that you can zoom in and out would be amazing. So if I'm walking around town, I don't have to be like right on top of the character, because I get that's the style thing, and I could see, with the DS, I think it might have just been the 3DS, they added like the hill. So if you're going through your town, the stuff is slowly like rolling over the hill coming at you. But I would love, I love open world games. I would just love open world stuff, like a first person camera would be fun. Anything to shake up my perspective of how I look at that town. I don't think you've ever been able to do this. I want to be able to send messages, mail to my friends, send presents to my friends through the game, and all I have to do is put it in my mailbox. Like, I don't have to like go somewhere, go to their town, leave it in their mailbox while I'm in their town, loading screen, go back to my town. I should just be able to just like put it in my mailbox, send them a letter, send it to my friends list, and burp. And I don't know if I didn't play Animal Crossing for the Wii U. I don't know if that's something that's been added to the game later. I just played the 3DS version, and I played the mobile game a little bit, but I gotta admit, I'm kind of done with the mobile game. And a little bit more customization of the items would be great. I know you can make shirts in the past and you can update clothing, but it'd be great if you could make furniture. So if I have a piece of furniture that I like, let me extend it, or let me like add a little curve, or let me change the color of the cushions, or just a little bit more customization. I mean, lots more customization. I would anticipate and accept maybe just a little bit, but obviously sky's the limit there. Lost Rob, I would like to know what your 2018 crazy out there C-Note New Year's resolution goal is for you personally and for Easy Allies. Note, just like the end bets, what are your crazy hopes and dreams for 2018? And just FYI, I feel the studio is totally attainable. Lost Rob said it right there. It's happening. Yeah, the studio is my oh, so that wouldn't count, I guess? My crazy out there studio goal, it wouldn't be, because that's attainable for Lost Rob, so he doesn't think that counts. To go to PAX East. And yeah, personally and for Easy Allies, to go to PAX East. That would be it. There you go, Lost Rob. That's that important to me. Koala with the final question before I do an editorial today. I have a prepared editorial about virtual reality. How would you rate the team's overall satisfaction with Slack? Asks Koala. What are some of the challenges you're all faced when starting the workspace? I just started a workspace for 3 people, and I can't imagine how hectic a workspace for 9 would be. We have lots of different categories on our Slack, and so that helps organize stuff. What's tricky is sometimes I think general is tricky. We have a area. We have a tab called general, and sometimes somebody will ask a very serious question, and somebody will respond to that, and then someone will jump in. Probably Mike Huber, who will be like, hey, I saw this movie and that was great. And that's more for like the random channel. And then everyone will be talking about that, or somebody will make a joke or reference something, and then someone will say, and then a couple other people will say some funny stuff after that, and then the original post is gone. And so it's tough to like pin stuff or make it so when you go to a channel, it's like, this is the #1 thing you should see in this channel. This question that this person asked is currently unresolved. That is something you need to weigh on, something you need to vote on. That might be functionality that is coming to Slack. That might be functionality that already exists that we are not utilizing. At the same time, Slack is fantastic. We would not have been able to achieve what we have without Slack. Slack was integral to our success, and has worked out really great so far, and it's so satisfying when all of us just on a Monday morning can get up first thing. And one thing that we don't use right in Slack is threads. I believe Daniel Bloodworth is probably weighing in there. It might be Ben. Probably Bloodworth. So there you go. That's one thing that we could do. They were introduced after we started, and no one got into the habit of using them. Nice. I think that's probably Blood. So, okay. Yeah, it's not, I can't imagine how hectic a workspace for 9 would be. It's not that hectic. The other thing you got to keep in mind is people like Brad or Don are not as involved as a Bloodworth or Damiani or Kyle, or Ben. Like, there's people that are much more engaged in Slack because they have more shows to plan, or are generally more observant of what's going on our Facebook or Twitter, or messages that are being sent to us via Patreon. So stuff that is coming to them that they want to then pass on to other allies. So not all 9 people are in there screaming at each other at all times. So there we go. So that's feedback. Takeaways. Got to do some race or some duel streams, which I love. Would be smart to add a Q&A or FAQ section to the website. We got to set up an Amazon storefront for Gundam and Candy, because we have a shortage. We have concerns about the group stream selection committee. That's something that we can possibly evolve in 2018 based on all the lessons from just adding that for a couple months ago. Gildon apparently makes some cool shirts, or Gildan. And speaking of merch, we need tank tops. And convince people who are not myself or Daniel Bloodworth to do bigger, or Kyle Bossman, to do bigger headshots while they're streaming. Their heads are too small for streams. Bring in the lower. Yeah, time for an editorial. I haven't really done like an official editorial. I kind of took some more time to ask some questions, but I want to do something, and I want to try this. I haven't had time to capture a lot of this stuff. It's a little hectic to capture VR, and it doesn't always look that great. And a lot of times it's just like vertical. Like there's only a couple games that really do like the widescreen VR when you're looking at the games later. But when we were talking about what we wanted to play for the Game of the Year discussion, I realized that I got PlayStation VR here. I got the Vive set up. Ooh, speaking of Vive, some really fun Vive Pro, Vive Wireless just got announced, and I want them. But I got a Vive here. Just got Revive up and running, and so now I can play games on the Oculus. And so I realized, okay, there's a lot of games, great games on PSVR, on the Vive, and on the Oculus. And I got to play these games because I'm one of the only allies who has access to anything VR. And so, like, I want to try to play as many VR games as I can, and I tried to space them out so that not only did I try as many games as possible, but also spent enough time with those games so that I could give you an impression. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that I played that I can take away a pleasant experience from playing in VR that I want to talk to you about. One especially that really blindsided me that I got messaged by someone on Twitter that said, hey, I worked on a game, and sent me a code, and I checked it out, and it's fantastic, and I was obsessed with it, and I've gotten family members and friends obsessed with it as well. The first game I played is Accounting Plus. Accounting! For the PSVR. Accounting is available on the Vive. I don't know if it is on Oculus, but Accounting Plus was teased at the Game Awards this year. This is from Crows and Squanch Games. Roiland, of course, who worked on Rick and Morty. There's also a Rick and Morty game in VR. I have not played that because I'm not that familiar with Rick and Morty, so I want to watch a little bit more of the show before I go in. There are some Rick and Morty memes within Accounting Plus. I'd previously played Accounting Plus, and I'd previously played Accounting, and Accounting Plus is good. I would say that if you own a Vive and you own a PSVR and you've been holding off on this game, you don't necessarily need to play Accounting Plus. They add some stuff. It is still a lot of the original game. It is still extremely short. Generally, if you know what's going on, it doesn't take very long to go through a single playthrough. And so, if you have never played Accounting and you own a PSVR, I would suggest you check it out because the thing that's great about Accounting that not a lot of people are doing is really irreverent humor in VR. Really understanding how VR works and kind of testing the parameters of what if I control what you're hearing based on where you're looking and what you're interacting with, and possibly making you laugh. You know, I remember playing like The Secret of Monkey Island back in the day and being like, did he just say a joke? Like, was so confused over the slow introduction of humor into this genre that I had not played before, to playing Conker's Bad Fur Day and being like, wait, this is like Mario 64 but funny. And so I really appreciate humor's hard. Humor is very difficult, and this is not only it's not like, oh, I'm playing Rick and Morty in VR. Like it's the jokes are geared toward, you know, this stuff was definitely workshopped, and the jokes really only come into form when you're actually in a VR space and you're looking at this stuff, and so it's fun to chuckle your way through stuff like that. But again, if you've already played it, especially if you played it more than once on either on Oculus or on Vive, it might have just been on Vive. I don't really see a reason to invest in PSVR and checking that stuff out unless you really, really liked it or you're just desperate for new VR stuff. Also on PlayStation VR is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And I tried Skyrim, I played Skyrim at E3, I think it was. Yeah, I had a really nice Bethesda appointment where I played Doom, I played Fallout, and I played Skyrim. And I usually don't play mages. And I did a bow and arrow, and I was like, I don't know if I have the energy to do this for like an entire RPG. But if you're a mage in that game, and the swinging of swords I'm not a big fan of because like it's not heavy. Like the shield I have in my left hand and the axe I have in my right hand are only as heavy as the PSVR Move controllers. And so it's weird to like seem like you're carrying this big wooden steel, stone thing, and not really, because it just doesn't weigh a lot. But magic is magic, and so in VR, magic I think is really effective and my favorite thing to use. And so I'm just this character running around, lightning in one hand and fire in the other, and just it's also fun too because you teleport in that game to move around, and so to me that's also kind of like a magic spell. It's fun to have somebody aiming an arrow at me, and then right when they shoot the arrow to just like port out of the way. And so I played that and kind of got out of it a little bit when it got into buying stuff. Menus in that game are brutal. You have to like hold the trigger and then move controller to like the left to go through menus and then up and down. And so it's not perfect. Sometimes you got to like hold the trigger and move it down and then hold the trigger and move it down to scroll through big lists. And while it is kind of trippy because I played a lot of Skyrim back in the day, to go into some of these storefronts and talk to vendors face to face for the first time, it is kind of bizarre doing some of that menu stuff. It's really fun doing the skill tree, because I don't know if you remember the skill tree from, I think Oblivion had the same setup, where the skill trees are constellations, and you're in a kind of like a... you can look out at the universe. You can see all sorts of galaxies and star clusters and stuff. And it's fun to do that in VR, where you just look around. It's like, oh, demolition's over there and archery's over there. And I'm out in space. But I kind of hung up on the menus. And when I first got to a town and I had to like try to figure out what armor to wear and to sell some items, I was like, ugh, I don't know if... I'd been playing for a little while. I'd gone through the intro and I started to get a little sick. And so I was like, okay, I think I'm done. Or just fatigued. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm done with that. I don't know if I'll jump back into Skyrim. And then I was like, well, I'm playing all these other games, let me jump back into Skyrim. And then I really got into it. And I fought my first dragon, and really started roaming the countryside and facing off against some crazy stuff. And, you know, dying a couple times and really testing the limits of really getting used to being a mage and, you know, leveling up things that I would for mage instead of leveling up archery, which is typically what I do in most RPGs. And what I definitely did my first Skyrim run-through. So... But, I mean, it's Skyrim, you know? No skill tree in Oblivion. They were birth signs. Oh, crazy. I mean, if you've played Skyrim, you played Skyrim. But I think if you own a PSVR, it's such a fascinating game to play in PSVR. I think it's something that Resident Evil 7 won the Game Award for Best VR Game, and I think it is definitely a very engaging experience to play Resident Evil 7 in VR. But going into Skyrim, I think it adapts much better towards VR, because the thing I don't like about Resident Evil 7 is you're playing with the controller, whereas, you know, like holding out your hand in Skyrim and seeing fire come up out of it, I like to do that. I like to hold the fire out in front of characters who obviously don't react to stuff, but going through that open world, seeing characters walk by, seeing characters turn their heads to you when you look at them, it's really interesting when, like, I'm talking to somebody and then I'll just look at a guard and the guard's like, what? Very immersive, and obviously doesn't look fantastic. It's running on the PlayStation, and you're seeing it through the PSVR headset, which is not the highest resolution of the bunch. But the kindest thing I can say about Skyrim is I was surprised how much I got into it and how hard it was to put down. Farpoint is also on PlayStation VR, and Farpoint is a game that I have played. I actually played Farpoint last night for an hour to just get acclimated to it. And the thing that's interesting about Farpoint that is not the case with a lot of these other games, I believe L.A. Noire, which I'm going to talk about in a second, has the control setup, which I chose not to use, but a lot of devs are sensitive about literally giving you the option to just move. In a lot of games, you teleport. In Skyrim, you teleport. In some of my favorite games I'm going to talk about in this, you teleport. Accounting, you don't, but you don't generally move. Like, the worlds in Accounting are built for just small environments. Like, you just kind of walk around your little tiny space or stand still. And but a lot of this other stuff, you teleport. In Farpoint, the thing that's cool about it, and the reason I wanted to talk about it today, when I talked about just general VR, is that you have this gun peripheral. And you don't have to teleport in Skyrim? I didn't know that. Interesting. All right, I will go back to Skyrim and not teleport. Fascinating. It's interesting that teleportation, depending on how far you do it in Skyrim, uses up stamina. So it's interesting, like, getting tired teleporting. But at Farpoint, you move. You hold down the analog stick and you move. And to some people, that their tummy doesn't like that. That really kind of offsets their equilibrium. And that is something I probably would not have liked a couple of years ago. It's messing with my tummy just thinking about it. But I'm getting more used to it now, and I did not have a problem with it with Farpoint. The thing that's trippy about Farpoint is you got this gun, and you're running around blasting stuff. I thought the intro to Farpoint was very slow. It took a long time for me to finally get to enemies, for the plot to finally, for me to start to realize kind of what was happening. And it's a very isolated game. It's a game that has lots of pretty environments, but for me with VR, I'm kind of past that point. Especially for something like Farpoint, I'm kind of past the the point of no return where I'm not going to spend time looking at these big gorgeous environments that much. This is the light gun game, so I want to be shooting stuff. And just based on my hour with the game, just even like in a 60-minute span, I did not get a lot of shooting in. It was responsive. It was tricky because I don't know how to, maybe I didn't figure out the button, but I didn't know how to like actually rotate the camera. So anytime I wanted to rotate, I just did that manually, and then I started to get out of the guidelines of what the PSVR could see. But good looking game. When that thing tracks well and vibrates, it's pretty trippy having that peripheral. I'm excited about possibly playing. I'd love to play Doom with that on PSVR. I wonder if that is compatible. I've demoed Doom VR, but I have not, or VFR, but have not played it yet. The next game I want to talk about is L.A. Noire, the VR Case Files. I played L.A. Noire, the VR Case Files on the HTC Vive and did not enjoy it that much. I was confused about what VR Case Files was going to be. I thought it might be like Arkham VR, where maybe these were kind of some new things that they had added to the game using existing technology, maybe some stuff that was cut, or maybe taking some of the best moments from the campaign and making kind of an abridged version of L.A. Noire, and that's what you actually get to play through. It's L.A. Noire. It's pretty much the game. They cut out little bits here and there in order to just kind of fade to black and then move you right into the thing that you're supposed to be doing, whereas there was definitely more of a continual flow of gameplay when you're playing in third person, because you're moving Cole around, and so you're actually like going through the detective, the police station, stuff like that. And the beats are a little bit quicker as you're kind of jumping through the story. But from what I remember of L.A. Noire, it's pretty much that campaign. And there's I really liked cocking the shotgun in VR. That was fun. I liked. I didn't get to do any interrogations, but I got to drive around a little bit, got to do some detective work. I didn't move around manually. I did the thing where I would like pick a location and then I would see Cole walk to it. But it's a tricky thing. There's so much different stuff going on. Driving was fun. I like driving around LA, and I just liked looking at LA. But this game is a little buggy. The moon would kind of vanish sometimes. Characters' heads would kind of glitch out a little bit. What's tricky is, if you're not familiar with the tech behind L.A. Noire, they did a very advanced, at the time, version of facial capture, where they were actually taking photographs of faces, so it wasn't putting reference points on someone's face and then having that animate a character's face that they had created. The photographs were creating that texture itself, and so you were actually seeing a recording of that actor's performance. The problem is that actor's performance isn't going to last through an entire scene, and so what you're seeing is this kind of default face, like people just like idle face, like maybe their mouths are kind of moving around, or maybe like their eyes are kind of looking to the side, but just kind of like, I'm just standing here not thinking about anything, not having any particular emotions, and then all of a sudden they'll have a take, and you'll see it like dissolve over their face, and they'll be like, hey Cole, and they'll say their line, and then they'll go back to like default face. So they're like, hey Cole, maybe you should go investigate that. And you'll have this like, uncanny valley. You can see like, oh, they stopped recording right there. And so the closer you get to people, the more jarring that can become. And it's tricky because it's expected and it's appreciated, and I think it's been fascinating as we move into this VR era to take these games from last gen and bump them up to VR, to play Skyrim, to play Doom, which was this gen, but to be playing these other experiences. It'd be really interesting to play Grand Theft Auto in VR. Maybe that's what L.A. Noire is. Maybe it's a test of what people think of Rockstar properties in VR. But L.A. Noire kind of doesn't hold up in my opinion, because I just think the activities are so random. I found myself like not enjoying the driving. Like by like the 5th or 6th time I had to drive, I was like, man, I could just teleport to that area and get along with the parts of the story that I enjoyed. So I wonder if there's like a difficulty setting you could set L.A. Noire to, where you could like just skip to your favorite parts. I found it a little tedious, and I really enjoyed L.A. Noire. That is a game I would not mind replaying, but as far as all of the experience that I had trying to create the L.A. Noire experience in VR was not as successful as I had anticipated. But I believe that is on everything? I don't know. I played that on HTC Vive. 3 more games to talk about. I played Lone Echo, which is by Ready at Dawn, which are the people that made Order 1886. This is a game that was advertised very heavily at the Game Awards. It is currently exclusive to the Oculus, and it is real good. I haven't finished it yet, but I've played a lot of it. In Lone Echo, you are a robot, and you are accompanying a astronaut who is on a ship that, of course, experiences all sorts of weird stuff and has all sorts of technical issues that you have to fix. And you got to explore this ship and scan stuff and move around in zero G most of the I think almost all of the time. And so the way you move around is fascinating because you got like little jets, and it's nice because you have the way momentum works in that game. It's kind of fun to just like jet towards something and then just float as you're looking around at the environment. But you can also grab the environment, and so you can grab hold of the environment and then push yourself. So just like you're going through space, if you've like seen people in like Apollo 13 or like, you know, space movies where they're moving through tunnels and they just grab the side and then pull themselves along, you will, you know, maintain that trajectory and you'll maintain that speed. And so that was really fun, moving around that environment. And what's so great about it is this rapport that you have with this astronaut. So there are other robots that are floating around this base, they're floating around this station, but you are this astronaut's friend. Like, you are the main AI that this astronaut chooses to communicate with. And so it's fascinating the responses that you're given and how you can communicate with the astronaut. It's fascinating to be in that position, to not be human, you know, to experience kind of what it's like being a robot, to look down and see robot hands, robot legs. At one point in the story, you're actually replaced, so your body is damaged, and so you just move from that body to another. And so it's weird now that you're in that body, kind of like, I don't know if was it Soma, I think, deals with this stuff a little bit. And so it's just fascinating, like getting into the head of an artificial intelligence or just other forms of intelligence and dealing with the human. The game really gets right up in your face right away. It's crazy. Like you're in a little closet and the main character just floats like right up to your face and is like, "Hey, what's up, Jack?" And so it's a crazy perspective to have in VR. And the zero G it might be one of my favorite ways to navigate. And there's just a lot of great physicality with the tools that you have and how you're able to scan the environment. Right now I'm getting into a spot where I think I'm going to have to go into parts of the ship where the lights are off, and the only light that I have is just a flashlight on my head. So I'm looking around the environment, and the only thing I can see is directly what's in front of my face, and that's kind of scary. And so not really looking forward to that part just because it's creepy. But this is clearly the kind of AAA experience you want out of VR. That's not just a AAA game that has been kind of like shoved into the VR space or adapted with you know, obviously some things that didn't go right or weren't as good as the original, but something that was written and built from the ground up for VR by a team that knows how to do storytelling, that knows how to make games look good, and raises some interesting questions. Is the type of game that when you're done, you're like, yeah, that would suck if that wasn't VR. Or not suck, but like that wouldn't have as nearly as much of an impact. And that would is a game that clearly I don't see Lone Echo ever not being in VR. I mean, that's just like that is specifically a VR game, and I think that's one of the things that that I tried to look for, and that I'm appreciating experiencing now in VR that I didn't get before. And these are types of the types of games that I'm trying to avoid now are like, you have a shield and a laser sword, and a lot of things are coming at you. Block them, smash this, you know, shoot these things. More stuff is coming at your face. Try to block it. You know, racing, like those are fun, and I wouldn't call them gimmicky. Like, those are very interesting, and certainly if you want to, you know, try to, you know, go to a cafeteria and experience that all of VR has to offer. There's flight sims, there's space games. I still have yet to play oh boy, what's the game I'm thinking of? It was a franchise that they brought to VR. I can't remember. You know, dogfighting, you know, flying around in ships and blowing stuff up. But I'm more interested in narratively how we can shake up the VR format. And so playing stuff like Lone Echo and L.A. Noire and Farpoint and Skyrim, you know, playing these games that really try to translate that experience where, like, no, you are a person and you are in this environment. You're dealing with people and making decisions, looking people in the eye when they talk to you, you know, approaching environments as if you are physically there. Also, talking about interesting narratives, this is a game that I demoed at Judges Week at the last E3, and it is a game that is exclusive for Oculus, and I totally forgot has come out, and it's called Luna. And this is from Phenomena, which is also publishing Watam. and it is beautiful. It's a lot like Tearaway. It is a kind of storybook-esque, almost kind of like a kid's game, like a really fun Little Big Planet vibes, where you have these kind of beautiful storybook, almost like worlds that are built out of paper, and there is a narrative where this bird swallows up either the moon itself or like the magic of the moon, and then has to like take that power and give it to other animals and help other animals, you know, bring the stars back and bring the moon back, and so it's that kind of vibe, you know, this kind of wordless narrative that is kind of ethereal or has kind of like magical tones to it. But it also has a lot of customization. So at one point I was taking objects and adding them to the environment, changing the colors. And then once I had created an environment, then I moved into the environment and saw how it you know, built itself. And so it's just a very beautiful game, very relaxing. It's just kind of a fun game to throw on your headphones and listen to peaceful music and just kind of play with all of the artistic elements that that game throws together. It's called Luna. I don't know how long it is, so I don't know from a value perspective. I believe it's $15 on Oculus, and so if you Lone Echo, I think is full price, $50 if not $60, and worth it. Yeah, Luna's a shorter experience, and so I don't think I've quote unquote finished all of these games. The very last game that I'm going to talk about was my favorite game of the bunch. Rick Hogue is already talking about it in chat. Hogue is psyched to talk about this. This game completely blindsided me. It is for everything, I believe. I know it is on PSVR and I know it is on Vive, so I can only assume it's on Oculus. It is called The Invisible Hours. And this game is really good, but it was kind of less of what the game had done and more about this concept that I've just been completely obsessed with. And thinking like, man, the next time they make a game like this, I'm going to be way down. If they make a game like this in a franchise that I really like, you know, if they make like or even like one of these with like Dracula in it, or like, you know, like a Frankenstein monster, or if they made like a Star Wars variant of this, or like an X-Men or something, you know, like if there was like ways to bring, you know, bring action elements into this, or create kind of a more or thrilling story and something less, kind of like slower paced like this. But basically, it is an interactive play. The play runs a little over 2 hours, about 2 hours and 15 minutes, I think, once you add everything up. And there are 4 acts, and you are on an island that has a mansion and some exterior locations. It's most of the game takes place in this giant mansion. And in each act, you get to watch the events that unfold in real time. And you can rewind, you can pause the action, and you can fast forward. And you can teleport around the environment, and you can examine things. You never physically hold anything, like you are a ghost. Like you're not a character in this world. I thought sometimes the game was actually going to break that fourth wall, but they don't. So you're never actually interacting with anything. It's not like characters like, where'd that chair go? You know, you're not doing anything like that. And there's not like, I need to flip this switch, and you're like, I'll flip it for you. You're always just watching these characters do stuff. But the key is there is not only a murder mystery that you have to solve, but every single character, and there are 8 total characters, I believe, in the entire story. Every single one of these characters has something to hide. Every single one of these characters, at some point in the story, is going to do something somewhere that you're going to want to see, you know, possibly more than that, because it is 2:13. Oh, I called it. 2 hours and 13 minutes. Because people are going to do some sneaky stuff. They're going to find some sneaky stuff in the mansion somewhere. They're going to do something deceptive. They're going to say something either to themselves or another character that exposes a lie that they had previously said earlier, or exposes something another character had done. You might find documents that, you know, contrast something someone else said, or if you're smart, you can put, you know, pieces together, reveals a lie that a character said. Sometimes there are audio cues that you have to be close enough to a person to hear not only something someone says, but like a sound effect that denotes someone lying, or something that is in contrast to something someone said earlier. And what's so cool is you can do this in your, like, at your leisure. You can, even when you move to Act 2, you can go back to Act 1. There's that rain. If you're in Act 2, you can go back to Act 1 and be like, hey, I missed some stuff. Oh, my car is getting washed. Yes. Thank you. The acting was good. The writing was good. I did not see the ending coming. I did not call the person who committed the murder. And there were all sorts of other surprises that caught me off guard. And I just became obsessed with exploring this house. What's really neat is You can examine objects. Again, you're not physically picking them up, you're just examining them. And a lot of times objects don't exist unless someone like unlocks them or opens them. So there'll be an envelope, but you can't get in that envelope. But then in one scene, someone will like pull the piece of paper out and look at it quickly and then put it back. And for that brief period of time where the piece of paper comes out of the envelope, then you can grab it and look at it and read it. And so you just got to be there and see stuff, and it's obsessive. And like I said, it wasn't like the greatest video game narrative I've ever experienced in games, but it was just the way I experienced it that was so fascinating to me and has gotten me my head just spinning about thinking of shows like, oh man, what if they did like a Stranger Things version of this? Or, you know, what if there were other ways that we could experience a part of a game, that if there was people that were making an open world game or making a third person game or making a first person game that might think, hey, maybe we'll just do like a half an hour version of this, just something that you get for free or something that you would just get for like $5 or $10 that you could then go through and experience just this brand new form of storytelling. So someone like me who's into video production, who has a history of theater, who you know, obviously loves film and television and storytelling like that, just my head has been swimming now with the possibilities of what you could do with this tech, of actually seeing. Some of my favorite parts were knowing something happened outside of the house and being inside of the house when it happened. And so I would hear a character say something and I'd be like, oh, wait a minute. And I would go to a window and look out and be like, oh, there they go. And I would see that character like running around and being like, I know that character's there because I heard that person downstairs say that thing that I knew happened at that one time. So I was surprised how engaged I was in a game I wasn't actually quote-unquote playing. I was just observing. And so it was neat to just be in that position and still become obsessed with it and still play the absolute heck out of it. So that is The Invisible Hours. I can confirm available on HTC Vive and PlayStation VR. Might also be available on Oculus. Rick Hogue approved. I invite you to go check it out. Might not be coming up again in Game of the Year discussions because, oh, what a year. But I think is one of those games that personally I will be thinking about for a long time. And when I reached out to my buddy Rob, who messaged me on Twitter and said, hey, check this game out. When I told him what I had checked out and the ending that I got and the stuff that I enjoyed, he's like, yeah, there's still more in there. Get back in there. So I still have to go in and experience more of The Invisible Hours. But thank you for hearing me talk about virtual reality stuff. There's obviously lots more virtual reality to play, but that's the stuff that I played over the holidays. I might potentially break out that VR segment, that editorial, and put that up exclusively on the interwebs, on EasyAllies.com, or youtube.com/EasyAllies, because I know I do some editorials, people are like, you should put that out there for everybody. So I think I might do this, because either that or I'll bring this all up on the next Frame Trap that I'm on, because I want to talk about this not just to patrons, but I want to talk about this to everyone who likes games. Because I know VR is, I think there are like 6 reviews of Invisible Hours up on Metacritic. So there are a lot of games that people are missing. There's a lot of experiences. It was really daunting to look at the Steam VR library and be like, man, I don't know. I remember hearing Shooty Fruity at PSX, but like, you know, is that the type of experience I'm looking for right now? And so a lot of people have been giving me suggestions. Thank you for that. Lovely to get the suggestions. We managed to pull it off, to get Cup of Jones under 2 hours. Again, we are getting close to our Game of the Year deliberation. It will be next Tuesday. I will be doing Cup of Jones again. Not doing any more streams this week. I'm going to get back on the Souls retrospective and get that done. So that we can do Game of the Year, I get the retro done, and we can go into our 2018 meeting, discussing the rest of this year, knowing that a lot of the big responsibilities that we had, booking the venue, getting our incorporation in order, getting all of that stuff figured out. So, yeah. There, Cup of Jones. Your review of Invisible Hours is on the first community showcase. Oh. I guess I just read Invisible Hours and completely forgot about it. Oh boy, sorry. Thanks, Hogue. Yeah, I guess you did, but I didn't. It's funny, I think I put that in another place in my mind, Hogue. The retro will be done by Halloween 2018. That I can at least confirm. I promise the Souls retrospective will be done by October of 2018. You heard it here first. So yeah, we're about to shoot a bunch of stuff, and we got some fun surprises coming up for you as well that we will announce later on that we're going to be working on today. So I love to whet your appetite with that stuff. Lots of fun ideas from all of you, lots of great suggestions, lots of great feedback that we will be incorporating when we talk about the rest of 2018. Lots of great ideas coming in from the other allies as well, lots of fun stuff that we'd like to share with you. And I hope you will come back, not to YouTube live, but I hope you'll head on over to twitch.tv/easyallies tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific time, because we will be sitting down for our group stream, and I will be painting something. I'll leave it at that. Wait. I gotta time it now. So it times out perfectly. The mouse is really far away from the PC. Oh, there we go. Wait, wait. Totally smooth, totally smooth. Cheers.